children's homes, down and wherever. No, I wear my heart like a Christmas sweater. And you said I'm cheesy, corny, whatever. Look, I don't think you see the vision, but that's okay cause I'm forgiven. But let me just be specific. Just a wave like a hurricane out in the Pacific. You never saw it coming, thought I'd miss it. Make a bed rock like I'm Hurricane Chris'ing it. That's Mother Earth just to be crystal with it. 2026 and we coming, no more figment. It's imminent like I'm Eminem back in 96. Swag in my bag on $1 trillion. But you know I'd rather be undoing problems of the human. That's AI, not the AI I find myself in. I'm building children's homes down and wherever. Girl, I can take you wherever, cause I take it wherever. When he's like whatever, yeah. Now I'm about to change forever. You boys talking about the weather. I'm about to change forever. You boys talking about the weather. I'm about to change forever. Your girl coming to the spot, just forget it. I'm the one like, hey, good Lord. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 32. I am extremely excited for today's episode. If you can see here, I got a new little holder for my papers. Won't blow away in the wind. It's like a little book I'm reading out of. Very nice. I love it. Very creative. Good idea, David. Giving myself a pat on the back. But yeah, today's topic is amazing. There's quite a few topics actually today I want to cover and talk about just for your entertainment and your education. I realized I was thinking about my podcast and I was like, okay, what is my podcast? I think about this a lot. Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Because I find that is helpful in motivating me to do what I do and make it the best it can be. And I think it really just all comes down to wanting to be as helpful as possible. Period. Point blank. Because I think we live in a world right now that, yes, has its own way of figuring itself out, and we always kind of get out of our problems. But that doesn't mean we get out of our problems without effort. That doesn't mean that our problems just resolve themselves. Actually, it takes all of us to resolve our problems. And I just believe I'm playing my role right here with this podcast. I just think this is kind of my purpose. I think it is my purpose. And I think that all the future businesses that I start from this launching pad of my podcast are my purpose and my puzzle piece, whether they impact 1,000 people, whether they impact 1 million people, whether they impact 1 billion people. It's just, this is my part of the puzzle. And I want to make it as helpful and beneficial to as many people as it is meant to reach. And I truly believe that is why I'm here doing what I'm doing, just to be helpful. So, without further ado, I want to start today by reading one of the most important tweets I've ever actually written, I think. And I honestly can't really think of much of a more important message for the world right now, truthfully. So without further ado, I'll read it. Nobody wants to be told they're wrong. Right? This, quite frankly, is the mindset of losers in the past. The universe, the chaos of the world, is forcing us to change this very thing right now. Everything in society has to do with this. It is this mindset which creates all problems. It is the ego. This isn't to say there are winners and losers in this world. Rather, we all constantly have the choice to listen to the voice in our spirit of the winner or the voice of the ego, the loser. This is precisely why the world's best CEOs, the world's best athletes, the world's best leaders all have one thing in common. They constantly want feedback. Not envy, hatred, traps, but genuine feedback of their ideas and crafts. They are not afraid to look in the mirror. The mirror is their best friend. It is the truth, not the LOOKSMAXXING mirror, the mirror of their spiritual ascension and purpose. Michael Jordan was constantly asking his coaches where he could improve. Read his book if you don't believe me. Tom Brady was doing the same thing and constantly auditing his own way of doing things. Read his book if you don't believe me. Constantly adjusting, constantly calling audibles. The average CEO reads over 50 books a year in order to know exactly where they are wrong. Steph Curry, Kobe Bryant, and Wayne Gretzky are famous for saying, put more shots on net or basket, in basketball's case, than anyone else. Constantly changing, making, creating the perfect shot. What you don't see is all the times they were wrong and off. The constant audit. The ego says, it's the basket's fault I keep missing the shot. When you complain about other people being the problem, this is what you are doing. The tyrant who is always right is not an enviable power trip the youth has been led to believe by our toxic mainstream ideas and way of being top dog no matter the cost. The tyrant who is always right will be and always has been a loser. The future is bright if we just simply honestly assess ourselves in our trajectory. And I guess you could say access. Assess and access ourselves and our trajectory. Simple, powerful purpose. It's really important. I might even start next episode with that exact same reading because I honestly don't know what could be more important than what I just said there. The true understanding of the ego. As I've alluded to many times in this podcast, many of us think the ego is this confidence, this cockiness, this arrogance. And in a sense, it is this arrogance and this cockiness, this thinking that we are better than things. That is a part of the ego for sure. But confidence, that's a different thing. That's a completely different thing. Confidence and ego are actually unrelated pretty much in a black and white sense. You can be extremely confident, and actually, your life and your purpose require you to be extremely confident. In fact, there are so many times, so many stories of people who give up, who are close to their purpose, are close to their dreams, are close to their goals, are close to achieving something great for the world, and they give up because they don't have the confidence. They don't have the relentless positivity. And so I think we need to clearly, very clearly discuss and establish the clear separation of confidence from this know-it-all ego, I always have to be right. See, actually what makes Tom Brady confident, what makes Michael Jordan confident, what makes Steph Curry confident, what makes the CEO confident is figuring out all the ways in which they are wrong, figuring out all the ways they can adjust their shot, adjust their throw, adjust their play, adjust their mindset, adjust their ideas, adjust their thoughts, adjust the way in which the future will unfold in their minds. And that's why it is so important to distinguish between confidence and ego, because when you can figure out where you're wrong, then you can be confident. I mean, it's not egotistical to have a goal. It's not egotistical to want to succeed. It's not egotistical to want to be the best at what you do. That's not ego. But we think it is. We live in a society that has the complete wrong definition of ego. And this is the importance of what I'm talking about right now. The definition of ego is not wanting to be wrong because you think you are always right and you always need to be right. of course, the paradox is by figuring out where you are wrong, you are moving your path and your spirit towards a place of actually always being right. But nobody ever fully gets there. But that's what you are ascending into. But, like, you see, the worst players in sports, athletes, that never make it. Oh, they have all the raw talent. They're coming out of the gates hot, you know. A lot of scouts are really intrigued by what they have to offer based on the raw athleticism or the raw physical size or whatever it is. They have all that. But the problem is they think they have it all already. It's that mindset. That is the ego, that you think you know better, that you think you have it all figured out already, that stops you from improving. And when you stop yourself from improving, you become essentially a leech and a parasite to your own spiritual ascension and the world's. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about something completely different. Thank you for listening to that. Very important. Episode 32, Creatine, Peptides, Raw Milk, the Timberwolves, and the Vikings. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Never dull the mind for the body. Whatever inevitably dulls your spirit takes away bits and pieces of the main prize and joy you derive from life. The following podcast is an update of my journey of personal health, well-being, and spirituality. The following content is not medical advice. Without realizing it, this has always been my mission in life, my North Star. Yes, I want to help the world. Yes, I want to be the best friend I can be to my friends, the best coworker I can be at work, the best son to my parents, the best husband and father to my future family. All of these things are true, and yes, also my North Star. But I think the key here is the word best. How do I get into the best mode? How do I become the best? This has always been my mode of operating. In fact, I remember in high school, my best friends used to make fun of me because I would always try to one-up everyone with a funnier joke, a better YouTube video we could laugh at together, a better movie, a better way of throwing the football, a better game we could be playing. It was this natural knee-jerk reaction. No, trust me, this is better. My two best friends at the time would always say, Bob, David's better. That became our new joke. Bob, David's better. Bob. They would say it in this obnoxious tone, just like as a means to exaggerate how ridiculous I was by trying to figure out a better way we could go about things. A better, more fun way of being in that moment, I guess. I just wanted us to keep going, keep ascending, and maintain the high vibrations, I guess. It became a running joke amongst our wider group of friends, and I became known as the guy who always thinks he's got a better idea. Whether it was true or not, this has always been my default mode of operation. Constant improvement. I just don't appreciate settling for myself. I always want to push the limits to see what I can do. And sure, did I fall short? Yes. But also there were times where I did push the group to new heights, new games, new fun ways of doing things, new videos, new video games, new activities. And in those activities, I always tried to make myself and the activity even better and better. I think I'm sick in the head. Jokes aside, what is this? What is actually happening here on a deep level for me? And I think today I can come to this with some clarity. For the record, these jokes my friends made about me never really bothered me. In fact, I thought they were pretty funny. I don't spend years, and I haven't spent years thinking about this. In fact, I've had a lot of time away from thinking about this, which is why I think I can understand with a lot more clarity today what was happening. In a nutshell, I was tapping into the truest part of myself, my spirit. And in this truest sense, separate from any external fears, external stimuli, there lies a true, authentic self, which only knows love, beauty, and growth. This is the spirit. It sees everything with rosy-colored lens and always wants to keep making everyone happier and itself happier and more joyful. Of course, this can be taken to extremes at times in unhealthy ways in the case of using drugs, constantly seeking a new high. But when this part of ourselves is met with pureness, there can be no greater level of consciousness as we are in the waking world. And what I mean by that is excluding meditative states of nirvana. Where am I going with all this? What does this have to do with creatine, peptides, and health, you might ask? Well, my friend, what I'm trying to say is this joyful, playful state of constant iteration, constant joy, constant laughter, constant companionship, and partnership. This state is best reached with purity. Yes, purity can be achieved very directly through meditation, and this is actually the best way to achieve it, I would argue. But furthermore, purity and access to the spirit and the love within us, which contains all of the joy I speak of right now, and of course, it contains all of this joy, should be a main priority in your life. And this is what I've realized over time. Purity is the main priority of my life. Coming closer and closer to who I truly am in my spirit. That is my main priority in life. And in those moments where I was just trying to get a better laugh or watch a funny movie or whatever it was, to just, play a new game, invent a new game, bring us to a new restaurant, whatever it was, that is the natural state of purity, of joy, of adventure. And I believe one of the lessons that I'm going to talk to you about today, I have learned over a lot of experimentation, over a lot of time. And I hope this is very helpful to you in your life, as it has recently been helpful to me, is actually that this purity is best maintained and achieved through nature. What do I mean by nature? Well, I mean through nature itself, yes, but also furthermore, we live in a world where not only is everyone trying to sell you things, but also people who advertise themselves as health people. Health companies even try to sell you things which take you out of this purity, take you out of yourself. How? Why? Chemicals. What I'm saying, remember, first of all, before you get triggered, you guys always have to remember how I am, who I am. I am David Applebaum, and rewind to the beginning of this podcast if you forgot. I am the guy who always wants to figure it out, make it better, and get more out of it. I am squeezing the juice. I'm not up here just making hot takes to get clicks or to upset you, saying radical things to just trigger people. That is not my style. I don't want to upset anyone. In fact, I purely just want to help people because just like my high school friends, if we all raise our vibrations together, that only makes me happier with you. I do not want to hurt anyone with the things I say. I'm just trying to figure it out. But today we will cover a very important recent understanding I've had in health and wellness. And without further ado, let's get into it. So earlier in my podcast journey, episode 5, I spoke about, and this is very important, because I said in episode 5, I would be updating you guys as I got new information about health. Episode 5, go listen to it if you want. It's 8 hours long, my longest podcast to date. A lot of really useful information still in there. Very useful, actually. Theoretic information, philosophic information about the topic of science, how to think about science. I think that's the information in that episode, which will be a sticking point, which will be basically something I don't revise, but everything else in the episode about the health, I say that I'm going to update and revise because that is how science works. That's how testing works. That's how experimentation works. That's how I operate. I am transparent and pure towards getting things better and better, improving things. So in that episode, I spoke about supplements and the importance of supplements in your health. I actually still stand by this statement. If you're thinking I'm going to go in the other direction, but I am standing by the statement if taken by the pure definition of a supplement, or at least my definition of a supplement, a specific ingredient found in nature, which you are taking a dose of. For example, if you find a particular plant to have certain benefits, such as dandelion root, you extract the dandelion root in pure, safe, and natural ways, and you consume it. Perhaps you even consume a lot of it in order to reap the rewards of the plant. This is a supplement, and purely and exclusively this. However, somewhere along the lines, I got lost in the sauce. I got lost in the matrix is my new belief. And that's what I'm coming to you today to tell you. And to be very clear, I am open again to going back. I'm at point A, I said one thing. At point B, I'm now going to say another thing. And then at point C, if I go back to point A, I don't care if you think I'm an idiot. I care about getting to the truth. That's what this episode and my entire podcast, frankly, is about. So, I'm open to being wrong about this new belief. Again, constant iteration, constant improvement. See, I have always been an experimental spirit who again tries to see how to raise the bar. Now, a little story time. This is going to be a kind of a fun story for you, informative story for you, I hope, about my life. You can learn a little bit more about me. All right, so this is pretty vulnerable. Appreciate you hearing me out, but here we go. As a college student, I was going through some anxiety, and I discovered that my roommate, who appeared to have a lot less anxiety, do well in class, and also have a cute girlfriend and a thriving social life, at least at the time, was taking quite a few medications you get from the doctor. In fact, he sort of had a cocktail of meds, like 5 to 6 of them. I wasn't quite sure what they were, and I never asked him directly about it, but I saw him open his drawer one day when I was in his room, and there was a drawer full of medications, like in the orange bottles you get from the pharmacy, right? I knew there were medications. And he had told me he had taken Adderall, or was taking Adderall. So I knew, put 2 and 2 together, okay, he's taking Adderall, and he's got a drawer full of meds. He's taking some other stuff too. And I had been curious of the effects of anti-anxiety drugs, antidepressants, and the like. Although I had one experience with Adderall as a high school student, but these anti-anxiety meds, maybe they were the solution to all of my problems, I thought. Raising the bar. Maybe this was a way to raise the bar. To do well in school and have a thriving social life. Maybe if I can just lower my anxiety a little bit, things will just fall into place, I thought. Just like it seems to be from the outside perspective of this roommate of mine. So just like that, I gave it a whirl. And throughout the 6-month stint, I asked for a larger dose as soon as I could. My doctor actually gave me a larger dose of the medication, which I'm about to tell you about, within a matter of, I think it was like 6 to 7 weeks, if not less. So I took the antidepressant Celexa, which is an SSRI, serotonin something or the other, inhibitor, whatever it is. I don't know the little lingo. Not really sure that it matters too much. And perhaps that's the point I'll make at the end of this. All I know is this drug was putting more serotonin in my brain, obviously in unnatural ways. While my social life began to thrive in college, my grades began to slide drastically as the side effects of the drug made me very lazy, and I actually had a hard time concentrating when people were talking to me. Netflix shows, all of a sudden, became like literally the greatest use of my time I could ever imagine. I remember watching How I Met Your Mother and thinking I was literally in heaven. I would watch it constantly for like a month straight, 2 months straight. I remember actually clearly I took summer classes that summer to make up for my poor grades, and I asked my doctor for Adderall so I could also focus on the sedating antidepressant. So I had the upper now and the downer. I had the antidepressant, which was the downer, and the upper in Adderall. I remember clearly one day in my psychology class, and I was about 20 at this time. I remember clearly one day in my psychology class I was taking that summer, our teacher was teaching us about these exact drugs. How ironic. It was quite serendipitous, you might say. I have this absolutely scathing memory in my head. I remember he asked the class more of a philosophical question, which looking back on it seemed like he would be a great guest on the Applebaum incident, right? But I digress. He posed to the class, so now that we know about these drugs and these medications and their proposed benefit to human behavior and psychology and how they work, what do you all, class, think about the necessity of them in our lives? Crazy question, I know. But it didn't seem crazy in the moment. Perhaps this wasn't his exact phrasing, but it was basically like, so if you're sad, should you take the drugs? If you can't focus, should you take the drugs? And he said, since this was a philosophical question, he didn't have anything to teach on it. It was just a discussion we all had for about 5 to 10 minutes during one of his classes one day. I remember being geeked on Adderall and a high dose of Celexa at this point, getting A's quite easily with laser-like focus in a relaxed state. And I was thinking, man, I figured out life. I blurted out pretty proudly and aggressively, well, I'm on some of these drugs. I didn't want to state too much as I maintained some privacy, but I did say, I take some of this, and without them, I wouldn't be in so much trouble. I would be in so much trouble. My focus would be terrible, I said. Without Adderall, and I have found benefits in anti-anxiety meds. I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was basically me supporting the medications in this personal experience anecdote. And I think they can be very necessary for some people, I said. Now, I was 20 years old at the time. Fast forward 13 years later, I am before you as a 33-year-old and have a completely different opinion. In fact, it is mostly the exact opposite opinion. But there is nuance here. I just more so want to tell this story to say, hey, I've been there. I've thought about this idea in this way, and now today I stand before you older and I hope a bit wiser with the exact different way of thinking about things. It's really important, and I don't really care how this sounds, that you as my audience know this about me and what I do here on my podcast, because this is who I am. This goes back to the story I told at the top. I just want to figure things out the best way of doing things. I don't care if I go back on my opinion and look like a complete fool. I care about getting in touch to the root of how I actually feel and what is actually optimal. What is the most in touch with the spirit and the truth and the joy of myself? This is the key to all of this. Shortly after my summer classes, I went home before fall semester started and partied with my high school friends from home. I remember I ended up essentially taking a lot of Adderall at a couple parties and somewhat feeling a loss of control and an addiction to these drugs. I remember my brain was kind of operating from a place of, well, I'm not going to go to the party if I don't take Adderall. I'm not going to have confidence. It was these dependence on these drugs that I had developed. Well, I need the Celexa to lower my anxiety, and then I need the Adderall to bump my focus and my clarity. And I felt like I needed them to function in general, just to be around people. It actually became pretty detrimental for a few weeks there in the summer because I was going to so many social events and I was just taking a lot of Adderall. I remember it hit me one morning when I woke up after a party at my friend's house and I realized I had basically experienced an episode of psychosis the night prior. I became so out of touch with my reality, I was texting people. I don't even remember texting and saying things that I shouldn't have said. And who knows what I said to all the people in person. I wasn't even drunk. That's the crazy part. I didn't even have alcohol. That was the scariest part to me. I had actually, that night, I had snorted Adderall, in fact. That night in the bathroom with some of my friends, and this was the first and last time I snorted anything. I remember I just had this deep sense in my body and chilling sense in my spirit that I was out of control. This was the first and last time in my life I had felt like that. I knew I needed to take a massive U-turn at this point with the medication route. It was kind of a traumatic experience for me, to say the least. Traumatic realization, we'll say. Mental psyche evaluation. And perhaps, I'll be completely transparent, this is why I have a strong opinion on medications that I'm not going to get into fully in this episode. I'll get into later on another episode, my opinion on medications and the specifics of that. And I'm very looking forward to having doctors on the show to talk to them about medications. But I think that my opinion on this stuff definitely is impacted by how strong of an experience I had during this exact story, but also it is also impacted by the people in my life who I'm very close to, who I have known have been on medications, and how I've seen from an outside perspective it affect their life. So I'm giving you all my bias. Anyways, back to the story. I woke up that morning after the party, the Adderall party of snorting Adderall, with deep shame, without any pills or medications without me driving back to my house, because I slept over at my friend's that night. I was faced with the sober and come down of what probably feels like someone after burning, man. I didn't feel good. Felt really down, actually. Even after sleep, in air quotes, my brain just needed to rest. How could I ever let myself do that, I thought. This cannot happen again. I'm done with these medications. The Celexa numbed me into a zombie to the point where I didn't even care if I was taking Adderall all day for 3 weeks and snorting it at a party. I got off all the medications at once. I didn't even wean off my antidepressant, which many doctors say is necessary and a crucial step. I just stopped taking it. I just stopped taking the drugs. I think I actually weaned it off for like a day. I think I took or maybe 2 days. I took like half the pill. But then you're supposed to wean it off a lot more extended, like a matter of weeks, I believe. You're supposed to wean off these antidepressants if you're going to stop taking them. Again, none of this is medical advice. I said that at the top of the podcast. Anyways, I only did it for about 2 days. And I remember just getting off all those medications was the craziest feeling, bro. I remember I slept for like 7 days straight almost. Irritable and depressed, and like my brain was completely out of whack. I do remember, though, I continued to watch How I Met Your Mother, but then it slowly became more and more unenjoyable as the days went on. Funny enough, though, after about 9 to 10 days of stopping the medications, the joy from the show began to come back to baseline. Like how someone who was not on any drugs that would fill your brain with a bunch of chemical serotonin would feel watching a good TV show they were into. It was cool. It was nice. It wasn't heaven on earth. It wasn't the only thing I wanted to do for 8 hours straight for 8 weeks until I finished the show, right? I think when we numb ourselves, things like that can actually just become so meaningful and so purposeful. But when you really zoom out and you really step back, there's just no purpose in that. There's some purpose. There's some joy you get from that. But you can also watch the show. Every night you can watch one episode maybe before you go to bed. You can watch maybe 2 to 3 hours a week of your favorite TV show. Seems perfectly healthy in that dose. But when I was on these drugs, it was uncontrollable. When I was on Celexa, I was in school, supposed to be studying. Before I got the Adderall involved, I was supposed to be studying. I was in college. My first semester, second semester actually, albeit. I was supposed to be studying for some of the hardest classes. I was pledging a fraternity, about to join a fraternity if you don't know what that means. And I just remember I would watch, there would be days where I would just stay in bed and watch How I Met Your Mother. And I wouldn't even go to class a lot of the time. So, clearly, and maybe that's just how the drugs affect me. But that's not my opinion. I'll tell you that. So, funny enough, I never actually finished How I Met Your Mother. Despite being only 1 to 2 seasons away from the end. I had a lot going on, to say the least. I only had about 10 days after my 10-day slumber withdrawal, recovery, whatever you want to call it, to get ready and go back to school and enter my sophomore year at WashU. A very hard school, where at this point, I didn't even have a major picked, when I was supposed to be more focused on school, I was basically toying with my mental health to optimize my social life and overall sense of self like a video game. Not ideal. Definitely could have used a mentor or two at this time. Didn't have it. I remember when I went back to school, I felt completely different. Like this, after I got off the medications, sophomore year, first semester, like a completely different person, yet actually more of myself. Despite the high energy or the completely relaxed feel, my more natural state felt more at home. Completely turned off by medications and the pharma route for good once and for all. I slowly began to explore other options. I enjoyed cannabis and alcohol quite a bit, as many young college men in fraternities do, and this just felt like its own medication at the time. It felt like pure bliss, and I didn't see a problem with it at all. But when it was done in excess at many points for me, it was like the medications. It became a problem I wasn't able to sense myself, which is dangerous. But what is this problem I'm speaking of? What is the importance of this problem? The problem here is, again, what I'm talking about in this entire episode up until this point, and that is the touch with the purity of the spirit, which only knows constant love and iteration, joy, and growth. You can almost think of this state as the inner child. Think about yourself as a child. Did you think you needed drugs? Did you think you needed medications as a child? Did you think you needed any of these things when you were 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? No, you just were. You were being in this state. It was when the world came crashing down on you, made you feel ways, and frankly, which we shouldn't be making our children feel. The school system doesn't teach and prop up with unconditional love. In fact, it does the opposite in many scenarios. It teaches you how you're stupid. It teaches you how you're, which you're not. It teaches you how you're, in many cases, not cool. For a lot of people, not many people are in the cool group. It teaches you how you're, in many cases, not attractive. Not many people feel attractive in high school. It teaches you in many cases how you're socially awkward, right? Think about all the things that the school system is teaching us that are negative. But when we're children, we don't have that. And then throw in when you're older, as you go into school, throw in all the kind of outside noise of society, perhaps a parent, perhaps a doctor saying, well, you know what? Since you can't sit there and do these boring math problems for 5 hours straight, I think you've got a serious mental ailment. I think you've got a serious mental health problem. I think you've got some kind of disorder. And so, because you can't sit here and focus on the history of some society and culture which you have no inherent, intrinsic motivation to learn about, let's say, or geometry, or whatever subject was boring to you in school, since you can't do well in that one, since you perhaps have social anxiety, since you perhaps had a bad day at school, since you perhaps had one beat you up or bully you, there's something wrong with you. And because of that, we're going to diagnose you and give you a pill. But when you were a kid, when you were 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, none of that happened. It's amazing. The institutions, the systems, the programming that we've built into our psyches, that we believe, that we've established in this world to convince ourselves how horribly wrong we are for being pure, for being who we are. Yeah, maybe in some subjects you weren't interested in it and you didn't do well. But there were some subjects that I can guarantee, if you were given a proper chance to learn that subject, if you were given proper beliefs, if you were given unconditional love, there were some things that you could do at an outstanding level because you had natural inclination. back to the story. Slowly, as I graduated college and became my own adult, I then got really into health and wellness when I was about 23 years old. I studied and read countless nutrition books, many of which were helpful. Listened to health podcasts daily from all the top podcast creators. I must have read over 50 books and listened to 500 podcasts all about health from the span of 23 to 26. This spurred my discovery into supplements. And real quick caveat on that. The reason I got so into reading about health, reading books in general, is because at 24, that's when I decided to quit my finance job and become an entrepreneur. Make music at all costs. I just wanted to own my own business, to do my own thing. And I knew and felt I didn't have the tools to do that without constant iteration and improvement on every area of my life. So I read a lot of books. Anyways, this spurred my discovery into supplements, the topic I want to now shift the focus of the conversation to, because I've already talked a little bit about medications. Now we're talking to supplements. And I'm going to do, as I said earlier, a separate podcast on medications. I'm not going to, if you thought I went into the rabbit hole today on medications, I didn't, not even, barely touched it. So the topic I want to now shift to is I went to a nutritionist, got blood work, tested for food allergies, got their supplement recommendations, and I thought I had made it. I thought I had discovered true health in the best very way possible. I got a food allergy test panel which said my IgG protein antibody was testing positive for gluten, dairy, eggs, and soy. The IgG protein, supposedly the theory is, that this protein shows up on the chart, as it did for mine, when there is a sensitivity to foods. So like an intolerance, right? The gluten intolerance, folks. Your IgG protein will show up positive. Actually, I just want to make sure it's IgG and not IgE. Jamie, can you please look that up for me? Yep. I'm doing it myself. So IgG versus, because it's either IgG or I just want to make sure I have the terminology right for you folks. Okay, so it is IgG. So IgG protein is the one that triggers for intolerances. IgE protein, I got it right. Prop on the back, pat on the back, D. Good job, good job. Something's working. Okay. IgE is a severe allergic reaction. So, then when I got my IgG protein intolerance panel back, I stopped eating gluten completely, dairy, eggs, and soy. I began taking supplements that they recommended, like vitamin D, vitamin C, phosphatidylserine, which is found in eggs naturally, GABA, maca, and many, 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 many others as time evolved. If you ask my ex-girlfriend or some of my ex-girlfriends or people who have seen and lived with me or whatever, come over to my apartment, they'll tell you, David, yeah, he had a lot of supplements. There were points where I had like 40 supplements I was taking. Not all in the same day, but I had like 40 in the drawer. And like I would take them sometimes I actually think the number's higher at like certain points, because if you include the tea, if you include like the powders, if you include like the different like things you can mix into drinks, I think it was like 50, 55 at some point. I wouldn't take them all on the same day, again, but I would take them when I needed them in certain stages. And I learned a lot about supplements, supplement timing, and I still do take some supplements. So we'll get into it, and I'll tell you which ones I'm taking today and how I take them. So anyways, but it's very important. You need to keep listening. This is a really important podcast about the health industry and supplements. See, right after I got off those medications back when I was a young 20-year-old, and I slept those 7 days straight as the meds of the Adderall and the Celexa wore off, I remember thinking, bro, I just need to be natural. No more drugs, no nothing, no pills ever. I was just super, super against pills. But then slowly but surely, a few years later, as I graduated and entered the workforce, I became a bit more open-minded to vitamins and supplements. I was like, okay, well, these seem natural. They seem from nature, right? And again, they can be, and that's when they can be good. Foreshadowing. Actually, I've already said that a few times. So let's see if this can add a little bit more happiness, a little bit more joy, a little bit more health. And slowly but surely, I added a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen, 4 dozen vitamins and supplements to the list. Now, where am I going with all this? Finally, can we get to the episode title today and talk about creatine and peptides, bro? I just want to shoot up. Because this is eventually where this rabbit hole of supplements led me to daily use of creatine and daily use of peptides when I could afford to spend the extra $500, $600 that month to inject myself with these peptides. Again, I think just the way my brain works, you can see I'm just constantly going down these rabbit holes and then ramping things up to the extreme, right? Led me down this slippery slope of trying things just because a few people I trusted said they could help with X, Y, and Z without properly really examining the entire health picture and B, the matrix of not only the pharmaceutical industry, but as I know and understand today, the supplement industry and the matrix that it is also in congruence with the pharmaceutical industry. See, that's kind of where I'm going with all this. I think it's all one big matrix at this point. And I'm actually pretty heavily convinced of that. And I think that there are only a few ways in which the supplement industry can redeem itself. And there already are, and hopefully are, some companies that are doing this. And I can explain to you today exactly how they can do this. Now, enough story time. I'm going to get into the hard, solid states of thought about what is going on. But part of my podcast and my journey, as I especially said in episode 5, is that I will continue to update you guys as I learn more and change my mind. So that's what today's episode is truly about, a new update, how I feel and where I'm going. And I have a Minnesota sports team rant at the end of today's show just for fun, just for a different kind of audience that, wants to just listen to me riff off about sports because I love watching sports when I can. I don't really watch them anymore, but I'm a fan of the Vikings. I'm a fan of the Timberwolves. It's fun stuff. Tune into that later. And if you just want to tune into that, just skip to the last 20 minutes of this podcast. But I recommend you finish up here because this is a very, very important show today. I'm going to make this as quick as humanly possible. So, conclusion. Here's the juice. Here's the golden nectar you've been waiting for. And before I give it to you, I'm going to drink my golden nectar here, which is some raw milk and kefir. Raw milk straight out the udder from the farm, kefir from the store. Man, it'll be a glorious day when we can get our stores to have the stuff that we need from the farms. Cheers. Farm to table. The past becoming the future. Almost like that's exactly what I'm about to talk about. I feel like there's nothing more beautiful than nature. I look up at the sky, at the leaves. The sky in particular, man. The sky in particular. It's just like the best. I love the sky. So, I have discovered and believe now at this stage, just recently, the supplement industry to be nearly just as suspect as Big Pharma. Not on the same level, but it must be looked at very closely and very diligently. Here is why. Let's just zoom out and examine this from nature. This over time feels like the most solid backbone foundation of health. It just feels like nature seems to never fail, and it never seems to steer me wrong. If I could only sit without it long enough and just not overthink the slight discomforts of life we all experience, instead of reaching for the new drug, the new supplement, the new state that I think is going to be better than this one, just to get me out of the one I'm in, what could I instead reach for? Recently, this has been playing on my mind as things I've been thinking about, and that's why I'm coming to you today talking about it. Obviously. So, what has that been for me? Obviously, meditation, I talk about that a lot, but besides that, recently I've been playing sports again that bring me a lot of joy, such as tennis. Getting better at tennis has been a huge part of my summer. I've been playing a lot of tennis, and it's just been like this thing that I look forward to every day to improve at, to chip away at, that isn't like some part of my state, right? Isn't some drug, isn't some supplement, isn't something I can do. Reading new books, learning new things about history, science topics, listening to other podcasts, creating new music, new material. This one has been huge. Tapping into my creativity, being social, working out, dialing in my nutrition, and even tighter and more healthy. But back to creatine and what an extremely important point I'm about to make. It is very important, so please listen. What we as innocent consumers and recipients of the marketing don't know about many of these supplements, and specifically creatine as a main culprit, is that creatine made in a lab, if you really think about it, of course, what I'm about to say is obvious, by nearly all of these companies is made using petrochemicals. What is a petrochemical? I'm about to tell you. And yes, I just discovered this. So, most, if not all creatine that I have learned recently is made using petrochemicals. I repeat, petrochemicals. This is essentially gasoline or natural gas as an agent in the process of making the creatine. So creatine, a molecule that is essential to your body, so essential actually, that your own body actually already produces it every day. And it's also found in protein and animals that we eat, many of us who eat animals. Creatine is found in the beef that you eat. It's found in the chicken you eat. It's found in the fish you eat. It's found in a lot of places from nature. Such as, so creatine itself is not the bad thing. It's not the enemy. In fact, it is actually, in my opinion, still very beneficial and very positive. Clearly, why so many people are studying it and want to take it as a supplement. But that is when it comes from nature, and that is what I have recently determined. What we have done is we have made these molecules which do come from nature into a marketing vehicle for health, when in fact, if you make your supplement that is on its own from nature a beautiful thing, but you use a derivative of gasoline or you use chemicals as agents in the process of making your supplement, how in the world are you selling health? You are obviously not. While gasoline itself and oil may come from nature, this doesn't mean you should eat it. There is a reason oil has that crazy smell to us, humans. It alerts us and alarms us. It's telling us to stay away. Rocks come from nature. Do you eat rocks? Poison ivy comes from nature. Do you eat poison ivy? Not everything from nature is good. Now we're getting carried away a bit, but the point is, when we manufacture molecules and supplements in a lab and use chemicals to do so, how are we truly providing health to those we say it is providing health to? Even if there are benefits that can be observed using these chemicals in the short term, what are the long-term effects? And more intuitively and spiritually, on your own spirit, you can feel the difference being off this stuff and then being on it. It's very, very important. It's actually the crux of what I'm talking about right now. So, and what I discovered is that many, if not all of creatine that is being sold on the market is made using petrochemicals. If you are a creatine company right now watching this podcast, watching this clip, if this gets clipped, and you do not put petrochemicals in your creatine, and you say, oh, our creatine is clean, it's just pure from the animal, I don't know how you would even do that. Maybe there's a way to do it. Maybe there's not. I'm open-minded. I'm not trying to bring you guys down. But what I am trying to bring down is the notion that you are selling health, brain cognitive benefits, muscle benefits, whatever you want to say, when you're putting gasoline, when you're putting a derivative of gas, when you're putting chemicals in your supplement. You're not selling health. Point blank, stop. If nature is our guidepost for health and optimizing our spirits, which is the point in the argument I am making and the ground I stand on today, which again could change, although it would be laughable and hard to think of how it could, which is just by the juxtaposition of this ridiculous idea. Like, well, no, it's not nature, it's chemicals. You can sort of sense and see the validity of nature as the summation of health just by the juxtaposition of it not being the pinnacle of health, right? So now let's shift to peptides real quick. Similar to creatine, peptides actually also use petrochemicals and a list of other chemicals as well as plastics in the process of producing them. Peptides even appear to be much more full of these chemical processes than creatine itself, although both should at least alarm you and give you red flags. So actually, I just recently learned about both of these two things about 40 days ago or so. Good grief. I can't believe I wasn't intelligent enough to think about this in the first place. Humble yourself, David. I mean, where's the camera for David? Right here. Okay. Well, it's a good thing I read and listen and keep an open mind. Okay. Pat on the back, David. Pat on the back. And this is why we all should. Because when we do, we can change a potentially detrimental route for ourselves into a positive route and way of being, which is what I believe I did here, and I am now telling you about. I had previously been taking creatine for about 4 years straight, with few days off. I would heat it up in my tea even, just as the experts tell you to do to increase absorption, and I would experience all the muscle gains and the cognitive benefits, at least I thought. Sure, I would more easily put on muscle. Sure, I do believe that, and I do believe even it helped with muscle endurance in the gym, as well as potential cognitive benefits at times with callbacks or whatever you have. But can I really prove any of that? Because did I have a control? No, I didn't. But what, of course, zoomed out, I'm not thinking about is, well, duh, how could anything which is made using a petrochemical be good for me? Even if it is slightly easier, let's give creatine the benefit of the doubt here. I'm just going to call it big creatine here. Really, does feel like another industry we need to take down, sadly. Well, not sadly. It's a good thing. It's amazing what humans do for money. Make all these industries that we market as health or beneficial. It's like we create things out of thin air. When all we needed was nature. Isn't that something? Anyways. Even if it is making it slightly easier for me to lift weights, let's give big creatine the benefit and keep on muscle. Is it worth the sacrifice for me to burden my body with gasoline? Obviously not. But if I had only known this earlier, this is why I'm shouting from the mountaintop now about this. So with all this new information, I did stop taking recently both creatine and any peptides, and actually nearly all of my supplements. And I recommend you watching this do the same, as always with these episodes, as I did with episode 5, and now I'm doing here with episode 32. Whenever I talk about health, it is not medical advice, but I am giving, we'll say, recommendations to my younger self. We'll just leave it at that. So, no creatine, no peptides, due to the petrochemicals, due to the chemical processes that are used in making these 2 specific forms of supplementation, we'll call it. I remember in episode 5, though, I called peptides super supplements. So, yeah, I'm open to proving myself completely wrong. Very open to it. So, here are the supplements I do take today. I take 2 supplements, sometimes 3. I guess if you want to call salt a supplement, I take salt. I put like salt and potassium, magnesium salt in my water. So I'm drinking like mineralized water. Still want to see a lot of more studies on that, but I do think that is supported in nature. If you think about like a river or the ocean, like where we used to drink water from, or like even coming from a natural stream or spring from the earth, it's got a lot of minerals in it, so feels supported in nature. But here's what I take. I take the salt. I take zinc every other day. I take some zinc from, where am I taking my zinc from? I think I'm taking it from Thorn. So I'd love to do some more research. Hopefully they're not using petrochemicals or any chemicals, but I take my zinc from Thorn. I view zinc as really crucial, and the reason I take it because zinc is basically known as one of the most beneficial things to your immune system. And I just don't like being sick. So I'm like, I want to take that. I also take some amla powder, which I also hope is not being made using petrochemicals. I'll take that like once or twice a week. That is amla, comes from the amla, AMLA, comes from the amla fruit. Very, very like ancient kind of studied medicinal fruit to provide, again, a lot of immunity and vitamin C. Now, wow, that seemed to be an interesting animal there in the forest. I don't know what that was. Probably just a squirrel, but it was really loud. Anyways, so I'll take amla, and then I take magnesium at night before I sleep. I take, I believe it's Magnesium Breakthrough from Bioptimizers. I'll take that one. Again, hope they're not using petrochemicals. Maybe I'll email these companies. Maybe ask them how their supplements are made. That's probably a good idea for the apple bomb incident. We can report back to you guys. But right now it just feels like, and then I also take liquid magnesium, and I use magnesium lotion. Like, I basically view magnesium as a really important supplement, or a really important mineral, rather, to incorporate. And I've read a lot of studies, or a few studies rather, on magnesium best being absorbed through the skin. So that's why I take the magnesium lotion. I use the lotion from, what's the company? I think it's like Dr. Axe's company. I forget what it's called. I've been buying a lot of that lotion though. I should know what it's called. I buy it so much I'm like, I tune out where it's from. I think it's from Ancient Nutrition. Something like that. It's like Ancient Nutrition. But I know it's Dr. Axe's company. So I'll buy that. And then I buy the liquid magnesium that I put in my water from Solbra's company, soldepartment.com, SOLDEPT.com. I really trust him with a lot of this stuff. And actually, he was the one who directed me towards the fact that creatine and peptides use these petrochemicals, and opened up my eyes to this. Now, so those are the things I take right now because I view my immunity and my sleep as crucial. I'm open to everything that I'm taking right now to be subject to change to nothing. Today I didn't take a single thing. So I feel good not taking anything. And that's kind of what I'm going to finish talking about here today. We're almost done here, folks. So But yeah, that's kind of one of the main things that I'm thinking about right now is, are even the minimal amount of supplements that I'm taking, are those even necessary? So we'll report back on the next episode that I go into health on that. How my new stack, my stack has gotten small, guys. My stack, but I don't know, my spirit stack is feeling large, you know what I'm saying? And that's kind of what I'm going here with all this stuff. So I want to see how being raw feels. And again, when I was raw off the medications in the college point, coming out of college, that was more also I was in my first semester sophomore in college. So I was going into basically the most fun semester in college you can possibly have, where you're a sophomore and you get invited to all the parties, especially if you're in a fraternity. You're actually throwing all the parties, and the parties are incredible because you're like right in the middle of being like the center of attention. You're the new kids on the block, right? Especially if you're in fraternity. You're brand new to the fraternity, and you're a brother now. You're not a pledge. So the parties were awesome. And yeah, I was drinking a lot of alcohol at that time. I remember I put on weight. That was the only time in my life I put on weight. A little bit of weight, a little bit of chunk to me, was when I was drinking all that beer. And then I was smoking a lot of weed, cannabis. And I believe that was not even though it was one of the main raw points in my life, I've had a lot of raw points. And what I mean by raw is just like not taking any supplement, any pill, any medication. Junior year of college, I was raw for most of it. Senior year, because I was the president of our fraternity junior year, and I really didn't want, like, we were getting threatened by our national, we were getting threatened by the school, not as much by the school, but like by our national, that we wouldn't be a chapter anymore. So like there was a lot going on, and I felt like my reputation was on the line at a lot of points, and I just like didn't want to like be, I was just sober mainly that entire year. I drank a little bit, but I didn't smoke weed at all. And senior year, I went back to smoking a little bit more. But anyways, I'm getting really carried away here. The point is, when I say raw, I mean nothing. And this point in my life, I'm back to trying to feel completely raw. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I haven't smoked or drank in 3 years. Although that will be changing shortly. I will be going up to a cabin with all my best friends in 10 days, and I will be having probably a bottle of red wine over the course of the 4 or 5 days we're up there. Maybe 2 bottles even. Because I want to just see what it's like to just drink some glasses of wine again. And I may smoke a joint or two with a buddy, because I don't really believe cannabis is the devil. But I feel really good right now, being completely off supplements, being completely off everything, being sober for 3 straight years. It's probably some of the best, like, neurochemical, just overall spiritual well-being I've felt in my life right now. And that is really the crux of what I'm trying to say to you right now. And I'm going to just finish this reading because it goes into my exact thoughts of what I'm saying, and I want to be very exact. So, on all those supplements, I thought they were helping me all those years. And I have to say, y'all, the conclusion is 100% crazy, good, and strong, I think. These supplements were clouding. I believe this is the conclusion I'm coming to. The supplements were clouding the very true essence of the spirit I was talking about at the beginning. After the constant iteration, trying everything, I think I finally found the answer. Me, my spirit, in nature's most raw form, in the last 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks since I stopped taking supplements, I have felt overwhelmingly, and it's only gotten more and more and more and better, more like myself, more grounded, less anxious, more in touch with my vision, my art, and everything I want to do and feel in this world, and frankly, just more of who I am. Yes, there is this feeling of, oh, but I could feel better. Could I do better? Could I do more? But I have to remember, this is the trap that got me down the rabbit hole in the first place. I breathe and again go back to this natural way of living, and I feel great. Like I said, feel incredible right now off 0 supplements. So I think sometimes we're so quick to knee jerk and we become so dependent on the pill, whether it's medication for you, whether it's a supplement, and we forget that I believe the point I'm coming to you today with, that the most strong drug of joy you can get from your life is that 100% pure spirit within you, yourself. How do you get more in touch with yourself? Because, hey, without the creatine, I'm still lifting heavy. I still am gaining muscle and doing my best to do so. But I'm doing so without taking petrochemicals, which were hiding in my supplements, frankly, and sold to me by marketing ploys, which is, frankly, not cool. Now, I'm not a black and white thinker. I do my best not to be black and white. Am I calling out all supplements? Again, absolutely not. I just said I still take magnesium and zinc. But I do want to do a massive deep dive and research into the industry. This would be a great documentary, man, like David Applebaum going into the supplement labs, just kidding. I hate guns. But literally the theoretical mow down of they've got petrochemicals, get them. Just sick some dogs on them, or they're using the chemicals. No. Not Thorn, we thought you were pure. No, but God, I'm funny. Anyways, I want to ask and learn as much about how all the supplements are made and how we can restore our path to nature's optimization and already biological processes for our vitality. We will do this on our show. I promise you guys. I do think, however, right now, even after everything I said, and I'll say it again, I've said it a few times already, I do think if organic ingredients are sourced and provided in the form of a supplement from nature without any chemical processes, then for sure there can be benefits to herbs, supplements, and the like. But maybe there should be a standard in the industry. There should be some kind of it should be the new thing. You know how you have all organic, there's different certifications you get on products, different certifications you can put. They should now put on a product, the new thing should be no chemicals added or used in the process of making this. And I really urge and challenge the industry to move in that direction. And the consumers as a whole, you guys, and everyone, frankly, even if you're a product maker, you're a consumer too, you're consuming your product, hopefully. If you're out there selling a product that, in the health industry, selling a product that you don't consume because you know it's unhealthy, man, there is a special karma for that. That is a crazy thing to do. That is the Bernie Madoff level of the health industry. You're you know what? I'm going to keep selling this product for health and wellness, but I know there's a bunch of crap in here I don't want, a bunch of additives. Stop it. Stop doing that. Your whole calling, your whole purpose, I say this all the time, is to pivot. Your goal in life, your goal in life is not to make money, my friend. Your goal in life is to pivot to a moral way of making money. Never dull the mind for the body. Whatever inevitably dulls your spirit takes away bits and pieces of the main prize and joy you derive from life. That's how I opened this podcast after I read the cool tweet. If you are getting slightly more jacked, or even significantly more jacked, using peptides, but are sacrificing your joy, your authentic purity of heart and spirit, is it worth it? Perhaps for you, it could be. But you may need to crash and burn, just as I did, luckily in my case, more early and more often, to learn that, for me at least, being the most in touch with who I am fully is the best supplement I could ever take. Vanity for vanity's sake will wear. Will wear. What am I trying to say? Will not last. Plus, you can always pursue your goals with your body without supplements. It's not like taking the supplement is stopping you from going to the gym, running, or lifting heavy weights. Your own mind is doing this. My own mind was doing this, guys. I'm not like, I'm with you right here. I'm talking to myself, basically. I only got like 20 followers or some crap. My goal in life isn't maximization at all costs. I thought it was, and I treated it that way for a while until I crashed and burned. It's not about the biggest muscles, the most money. Rather, it is about the joy I get from the experience I live and the feeling of joy and fulfillment I get when my head hits the pillow and throughout the day. That not only I gave it my all, but I also did so in congruence with a mission which truly fills me up. My own beautiful spiritual experience fully as David Applebaum with nature's help. Now, one final note before the Timberwolves and Vikings rant, which I know you all are waiting for, which is really not a rant, but it's like a philosophical talk, but it's also like talking about the teams and the poor decisions we make from a spiritual lens, of course, because I can't help myself. But before we do that, I want to also just finish up my updates on my health journey, which I stated I would do and always do when I'm doing a podcast about health and my life, which that's what this is. So since this episode is diving into those topics, I will share another experiment I recently started along the similar lines of thinking of using nature's help. And that is beautiful raw milk, which I have right here with a little maple syrup that I put in there to sweeten it up. And the kefir, as I said earlier. But the kefir is not from the cow. Well, it is from the cow, but it's not from the farm. It's actually from the store. But I got this raw milk here from a farm out in God knows where I was. I just drove 2 hours like west of here. And man, it was cool. I met this cool farmer, amazing lady. I'm not going to say her name. I don't know if she just doesn't want to be known. Her name's Carol. That's her name. Truly it is. But no one's going to figure out anything from that. Carol. But she's a beautiful, beautiful lady. And beautiful spirit. I could just sense it right from her. And she was so normal, man. I am waiting for the day that I meet a not normal farmer, and I'll let you guys know. But every farmer that I've ever met has been like the most normal, cool person I've ever met. I've only met like 3 or 4, but that's gonna change. I'm also gonna try and get a farmer on the show, many farmers on the show, not a farmer, many farmers, because I love farmers. I love getting to know farmers. And they play such a crucial role in our world. So anyways, this raw milk is from the farm, from Carol's farm out there in God knows where, Minnesota. And it is straight from the udder. It is filtered. It is filtered just basically to get the dust particles off. But it goes through like a filter to get the dust off, essentially. Nothing else is filtered. Nothing else is added. It's straight raw milk, not pasteurized. And now I'm going to get into my thoughts on this. So I have personally never liked the taste of milk, especially as a picky eater growing up. I would simply reject it always. Any milk. So I've never actually really had milk in my life, besides when I was a baby and being breastfed. Like I literally never drank milk, you guys, like ever. So this is a really new experiment for me. It's very exciting for me. But now that I'm older and taste is much less of a concern for me, especially if something is potentially very healthy, I will put aside my taste buds for the moment in order to improve my health and my vitality. Another reason I avoided dairy as well as eggs, gluten, and soy, as I stated earlier on the show, is due to the blood work I got done in the form of the food allergy test, testing my IgG protein antibody reactions. Again, these are the things you are very allergic to, or rather intolerant to. IgE protein is the peanut allergy, throat will close up. I actually don't have any IgE protein allergies that I'm aware of, which is nice. I can eat anything, which is pretty cool, without a throat close up. So, lucky me, I guess. And then there are, okay, so I said that. So, I went with this theory for 6 to 7 years of like not being able to eat my IgG protein antibody foods such as gluten, dairy, eggs, and soy. For you, to be very clear, they will be different. Perhaps you have none. You should get that tested. But perhaps also, as I'm about to say, I'm not sure how valid this theory is of these intolerances. So, as I did avoid these foods from 23 to 30, I did feel good on this diet, and I also had these foods from time to time. It's not like I completely avoided dairy, completely avoided gluten, but 99% of the time I did. And soy and eggs. Or actually 95%, I'll say, just to be a little more accurate. But, I'm in my 20s enjoying life. Couldn't be perfect. But in terms of health, I had no issues. And I did have good digestion. But there were a lot of other conflating variables, such as probiotic use, such as just overall constantly eating healthy organic foods. I rarely, if ever, eat processed foods in general. I use peptides such as BPC, which is supposedly very helpful with gut issues. A lot of studies on that. But as you know, as I just said, now they're with the petrochemicals. Are they really healthy? So it's hard to say what is doing what and how real these intolerances are. Some functional medicine doctors and nutritionists suppose that there are foods you should avoid completely if you have the IgG, antibody reaction. Others say you should avoid them and give your gut a chance to heal. Then you can slowly reintroduce them with the help of things like colostrum and other gut aids to build back up a regular intolerance. Others say something completely different, like these will show up on the blood panel if you have had simply just a lot of these foods in your life, and you are completely okay to ignore them as any telling sign of your gut health or diet guidelines and restrictions. So, safe to say, there's a lot of radically varying viewpoints on this topic. And with something like gut health, I'm sure there are a lot of different junctures ways to go about it and look at it. But this will for sure be a focus on the podcast at certain junctures going forward, trying to get to the bottom of what is the optimal diet. Is it completely individual? What do these IgG protein antibodies or food intolerance reactions really truly tell us? Are these actually truly intolerances and to be avoided? Or what is going on here? Regardless, I don't have the answers for you today, unfortunately. Although I have my own thoughts, which I will give you. But that doesn't stop me from slowly and safely reintroducing things to test for myself. And that's exactly the update I have for you today. In the last 4 months, I have reintroduced eggs and dairy into my diet quite heavily, actually. I eat eggs about 3 to 4 times a week, over easy. Cook them on my stainless steel pan, with a little, not butter, beef tallow as the oil. Although I have been using some ghee too sometimes, which is butter. And I'll eat that and put that over my other protein, or I'll just eat them by myself. I've also reintroduced raw dairy, such as raw cheese, butter, ghee, colostrum, and most recently in the last 2 weeks, raw milk. Yes, I went to Carol's Farm 2 weeks ago, and yes, the thing I never liked the taste of, but not only that, milk in its purest form, unpasteurized, with all the bacteria in it. The theory behind raw milk, which a lot of Twitter bros and a lot of YouTube bros and a lot of people who study health are behind and believe in, is you are getting good bacteria to help your gut establish a strong digestive system as well as overall gut health, which, as we know with a ton of certainty now in the health space, your gut is crucial for your overall health due to the sheer amount of bacteria in our guts acting as our second brain. This is why so many people in health can say with almost 99.999% certainty, basically definitively, one of the most important aspects to our health is the food we eat, the inputs we have. This is why I'm so intrigued and dialed in on this topic and interviewing more and more people on this to discover more and more. I mean, we can say with 99.9999999% certainty that seed oils, eating chemical burgers from McDonald's, is going to be bad for our health, nuking our gut health with chemicals, etc., we can say eating a ton of fake processed sugar wreaks similar havoc. Similarly, we can say processed foods in general do the same thing. So I'm less interested in these questions. We seemingly already have the data, the intuition, the logic to answer. I'm more interested in the questions about these food intolerances I'm talking about, the questions about raw milk, the questions about eggs, vitamin A toxicity, the question about eggs, vitamin A toxicity as well, which is a new trend if you haven't been paying attention in the health space. Vitamin A toxicity believes that you should avoid foods that are high in vitamin A because this is overly toxic to the liver. But is this the best route? Does nature fully have our answers in spades, or are there certain foods, even within nature, as innocent as tomatoes and potatoes, two foods which are very high in vitamin A, which we should also avoid entirely? Eggs and dairy are also very high in vitamin A. I have experimented personally with the low vitamin A diet in 2025. I felt great, and I think there are certainly some validity there, but I want to know for sure. There's also some logic behind it, I believe. I want to keep asking questions and figuring things out and talking to people who are on the ground doing the research in this stuff every day, because I'm certainly not in this rabbit hole every single day, and I don't want to pretend I am and I know the answers, as I think that is a very dangerous predicament we all get ourselves in. Goes back to everything I've already said today. I can say, though, right now I have introduced dairy, eggs, and again, I do feel really good. But again, I can say a lot of conflating variables. I stopped taking the chemical supplements. That's a major factor. It's summer, and I love summer. I get a ton of sun. I go on long runs. I ground my feet in the grass. I play sports outside. It's the best time of the year. I feel good, of course. Ultimately, the final level of the dial in for me diet-wise will be testing the low vitamin A diet versus the nutrient-heavy diet of raw foods such as raw milk, raw meat, raw oysters, eggs, raw cheese, fruits. Because these are the two camps that basically people are in right now that I believe have everything is funneled down to this. It's either people who believe that you need a lot of raw nutrients, that's the optimal diet. It doesn't matter if it has vitamin A or not. And then there's people who believe, yeah, you need nutrients, but you don't need or want vitamin A. Because the foods that have vitamin A, we weren't meant to eat. A lot of the plants, tomatoes, potatoes that have vitamin A, that's essentially like the plant attacking you with its defense mechanisms and poisoning you. And also the folks in the vitamin A camp believe that the liver, right? You think about a liver, you eat an animal's liver high in vitamin A, right? But it also, the liver is a detox organ. So you're eating an animal's detox organ. So you can see the logic behind both camps here. So I think like all the other diets, vegan, all that other stuff, I'm not really, just strictly carnivore. I'm not really, I don't think they made it to the final round. That's what I'm saying. I think the final round is between nutrient heavy, which is what I'm doing right now, raw milk, raw dairy. I eat meat rare. I cook my meat very lightly. I eat it mainly rare. I'll eat some rice. I'll eat beans. Eat a lot of fruits, or it's the vitamin A camp. And actually these diets look very similar. The only difference is the dairy and the eggs. So vegetables, now I have read at this point a lot of negative things about, both from the nutrient heavy diet camp as well as the low vitamin A camp. The two camps which I believe are at the peak of what optimal human diet should look like. I just can't decide who the winner is. Why do vegetables not make the top of the list on either of these diets? Well, you can guess. In the low vitamin A camp, these vegetables mostly have a ton of vitamin A, like spinach, carrots, kale, broccoli, tomatoes, potatoes, etc. On the nutrient heavy camp, they argue that these similar vegetables have what they call anti-nutrients, basically parts of the vegetable which are negative to our bodies and attack our bodies, supposedly because the plant itself has these protective mechanisms as an evolutionary process of survival. Makes sense. Perhaps the two camps are actually more on the same page than they think. Fruits, however, such as bananas, apples, berries, like blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, kiwis, strawberries, watermelon, are all both nutrient dense and also low in vitamin A. So these are safe bets, I believe, for myself and you as the diet approaches, which is great news because I love fruits, and many of us do too. Nuts may be low in vitamin A and also contain good nutrients and macros, so to speak, be sources of protein, but many And both camps suggest that the seeds and the nuts we consume weren't evolutionary supported as well, as are also now the way they're made, full of heavy metals and aren't sourced great in our food production. So I do consume some nuts. I do consume pumpkin seeds, almonds, almond butter, even cashew butter at times. Cashew butter is delicious. I wish I didn't love it so much. It's like the most amazing thing. Artisanal Organics cashew butter is like my favorite thing in the world, if you haven't had it. Like, especially if I'm in a rush, I'll just have that, like with a little maple syrup. It's just like pure protein. Anyways, I try not to because I try to stick to proteins such as steak and chicken, proven over time, proven in these diets, which I believe are the two finalists, as I said. So here's what I do know for sure. The food we eat consistently will not only be a large indicator of our health, but also our minds, our energy, and our lives. Eating whole organic from a high quality source is absolutely paramount. The nuance, twists, and turns I speak of today are definitely to be studied more, and I will keep you guys updated the next time I do a podcast on this. I will say overall, the things I noticed on the low vitamin A diet were much lower anxiety than usual, which is why this diet still really intrigues me and sticks out, despite not following it at the moment. I don't have a ton of anxiety now, but again, a lot of conflating variables. In Minnesota, it's summer. It's the best time of the year. It's so nice to be outside. It's amazing up here. The benefits now from raw dairy, nutrient-heavy diet seems to be more gut health related, skin health related, hair health, which are all things I wanted to focus on anyways. I sort of have been having more anxiety a little bit, I would say, at times, than on the low vitamin A diet. But again, this is very hard to know what's coming from what. So it's hard to argue either way for me at this point because they both seem to be beneficial. I will continue to experiment, test, and monitor and keep you guys up to date. When the time and resources allow, obviously I'll have people on the show who are experts at this. And obviously I'll do more blood panels as well as continue to test and monitor our approaches. So to summarize, the health changes on this episode. At this point, August 3rd, 2026, when I'm writing this, the biggest changes I have noticed are more in touch with my inner child, my love for life, and overall better well-being since dropping my supplements. Again, I do take zinc and magnesium. I'm not saying all supplements are bad, especially ones made with zero chemical interference. In fact, I would strongly posit those are very likely beneficial. The only problem and question then becomes, how many supplements are truly made in this way? This is one of the most important questions and answers in health today in 2026. The other major change with me is the introduction of raw milk into my diet, and I have noticed the improvement in my skin already after 2 weeks. I had a few spots on my face, which were breaking out pretty regularly, and it was frankly annoying because I was attempting to do as much as I could, tea tree oil, naturally, all this stuff. But since I started drinking raw milk, my face has become completely clear in a matter of days, which is obviously fantastic and incredible. The key or the theory here is that our guts are related to our skin health as well. A lot of people believe this. This is something that seems to be very, we could say with a lot of certainty. So, my face has become completely clear in a matter of days, which after going to raw milk. So if you want to try raw milk for yourself, again, this is not health advice, I would suggest going to rawmilk.org and trying to find a nice local farmer in your area through this site who can help you. I also suggest using glass bottles to fill up your milk, not plastic. You don't want microplastics. And buy enough for 3 to 4 weeks, as that's usually how long it will last. My suggestion also would be to trust your gut, tune out the propaganda and the noise if you think your gut or skin health could use a boost. And so, yeah, the only question is, why not? Again, final note, none of this is medical advice. Thank you for listening. Now we gear up for football and basketball season. I have some important things to say. I'll see you over there at that portion of the podcast. If all you care about is health and you hate sports, then I'll see you next episode. Much love. Namaste. So I want to tell a quick story here about a term that I came up with. And you're like, oh my God, who is this egotistical jerk coming up with these terms? You know, who does he think he is? Nietzsche? Actually, I don't know much about Nietzsche, but I just bought one of his books. I'm excited to read it. But yeah, who does he think he is? Nietzsche? Anyways, so here's a term I coined, and I believe with all of my heart, mind, body, and spirit that this term is valid and very important. The term is spiritual damage. Now, what do I mean by spiritual damage? In order to tell you about spiritual damage, I'm going to tell you a story quickly. The story is this. I remember I was talking to someone, and they were complaining about society and how everything was so messed up, and there were all these problems. And I was listening to them talk, and I was like, yeah, like they were going on. I was like, yeah, couldn't agree more. Like, yeah, you're right. That is really messed up, and that is really messed up. And then something very important happened in the conversation. All of a sudden, this person making completely valid points, talking about infrastructure, talking about philosophy, talking about things that needed to change in society. All of a sudden, this person started talking about people and how certain people were the problem. How this group of people was the problem and that group of people was the problem. And if only this group of people didn't exist, then we could solve all those beautiful ways of thinking that they started talking about. See, and this is spiritual damage in a nutshell. It is the damage, the trauma, the emotional baggage that you carry from people that you don't heal properly, that you have not let go of, that you have not released. And so you carry this spiritual damage. And what it does is it interfaces and changes the way in which you move in the world to a drastic degree. All of a sudden, the solutions, the problems, the philosophies, the things that you were talking about that needed to change, all of that's thrown out the window. Your new focus is hatred. Your new focus is bringing people down. Your new focus is consolidating humanity towards people who just appear and look and think like you. That's never going to happen, nor would you ever want that to happen. I always say this when people talk about other people, other groups, and they have a negative opinion of other groups and difference, and I just wish everyone thought like me. Yo, you wish everyone thought like you, huh? You wish everyone was just like you, huh? Okay, well, let me put it this way. You ever had a crush? It's a great Jaden Smith song, if you know what I'm talking about. You ever had a crush? Have you ever had a crush, though? Have you ever liked someone? What if they were the same person as you? Boom! Where's the gavel? I don't have a gavel. I got raw milk. I'll drink some raw milk. That crush wouldn't exist, my friend. You ain't gonna crush on yourself. All right, you ever listen to great music that you probably couldn't have made yourself? You ever watch an athlete who's really good at the sport that you're probably not too good at, and you're like, wow, this is fun to watch? You ever cook, or rather eat the dish that is made by the chef that you probably didn't have the patience and the wherewithal and the skill and the inclination to learn how to cook that dish? You ever look at the painting? You ever look at you ever take the class from the teacher? You ever see? The point I'm making is the difference is always a good thing. The only question is, how much spiritual damage does the difference have? I have this line that I wrote in some of my music that's not released yet, but the line is, the The intentions, that's just the mental. Tell me what you do with the pain, that's the tell-all. What you do with your pain, that is the tell-all. That is spiritual damage. Can you look past the fact that human beings are going to be different than you? They always will be different than you. Can you heal the pain that some of that difference inevitably will cause all of us? Can you heal that? Can you look past that? Can you get beyond that? And when you can, and when you don't have spiritual damage, then your output in this world starts to actually be productive, starts to actually be positive, because you understand the world. See, you can't be productive in the world if you are unhealed. You really can't, because you're living in fallacy. You're living in la la land. You're going back to, I would have a crush on myself. I just wish everyone was the same as me. Yeah, I would, have babies with myself. I would, listen to music if I was the only one making the music. I would, that was nasty. I got a little snot coming out of my nose. I'm sorry. That was a good one though, right? So the point is, spiritual damage is the most important concept in our world because it determines our productivity. It determines our output. If we can heal ourselves, we can orient ourselves towards true productivity because we are working within the true frames of reality. We are working within the true frames of who we truly are, even, which is a spirit. And when the spirit becomes damaged, when you become damaged, you cloud who you are. And when you cloud who you are, there's no way that you are living a life of joy. There's no way that you're living a life of fulfillment. When you cloud the purity of love within you, when you are acting out of damage, when you're acting out of hatred, when you're acting out of divisiveness, when you're acting out of it's us versus them, there's no way that you're living a good life because that's not who you are. That's not who any of us are. So, and I just talked about this in my latest episode 32. I believe fully that the purest, most amazing drug on earth is to simply be completely in tune and on frequency with who you truly are and the purity of that. And there's so much chemicals, medications, blah, 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 even supplements, as I talk about in 32, that are full of chemicals that take us away from who we truly are. And spiritual damage in the form of hatred, in the form of not forgiving, in the form of judgment, takes us away from who we truly are. So you don't want that. And I can put my life on that. You do not want that. I know that with every fiber of my being. And love feels great. Feel more love, be more love. And I guess I'm like a philosopher now because I just coined a term. We'll see if it lands. I'm about to read this book. Let's see what he's made of. Beyond Good and Evil. Seems interesting. Peace, guys. All right, Timberwolves Nation, Minnesota sports fans all across the world, I have an announcement. I have something you need to hear, and I'm going to extrapolate it to a larger societal problem and point. Okay? Of course. Minnesota fans, Minnesota sports fans are the most delusional people you will ever meet in your life. And who is even more delusional are the GMs. It's not the fans who are necessarily at fault. It is the GMs who are afraid to go against what the fans might think time and time and time and time and time and time again. And I'm only talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Minnesota Vikings, football, basketball, because those are sports I really care about. I don't follow hockey or baseball, so I'm leaving that out. But let's look at the Timberwolves and let's look at the Vikings and let's look at what they did wrong and how they did it wrong, and then figure out how we're doing that as a society and maybe as individuals and how we can fix that. So, because it's a perfect illustration. So, the Timberwolves, we had Steph Curry. We had the opportunity to draft Steph Curry in 2008. What did we do? We took 2 point guards. If you don't watch basketball, Steph Curry plays point guard. We took 2 point guards that were not Steph Curry ahead of him. We took Ricky Rubio, a flashy Spaniard who is all flash, all passing, all about he was like the hot name at the time. He was like the cute name at the time. And then we took Johnny Flynn, who was also the cute name at the time for defense. He's like the best defensive point guard in the history of basketball. He'll with the passing and the defense, you could see how it makes sense. The second we didn't take Steph Curry, I freaked out. I threw my remote at my TV. I was like, bro, this is the biggest overthinking I've ever seen in my life. And I am the biggest overthinker I've ever met. I was like, how are we not taking Steph Curry? He just dropped 50 points back-to-back games in the March Madness tournament. How are we not taking the guy who just put up 45 to 50 points in the tournament on some no-name team and got him to the Sweet 16 or something, wherever he got him? Who knows where he got him? All I know is he was putting up 50 points a game. He puts the ball in the hoop. Why are we not taking the guy who puts the ball in the hoop? What happened? We take Ricky Rubio, we take Johnny Flynn. They end up both being pretty bad. Johnny Flynn much worse than Rubio, but overall, neither of them had great careers, you could say. Rubio was much of a disappointment, sadly, because I love both these guys. They're great people, nothing against people. And Steph Curry, what is Steph Curry is potentially the best shooter of all time. Steph Curry is potentially the 5th best basketball player we've ever seen. In my opinion, he's top 5 best basketball player I've ever seen in my generation. Okay, now let's fast forward. What do we do again? Timberwolves, what do we do again? Okay, so we make it to the Western Conference Finals recently with Ant Edwards. What do? We make it to the Western Conference Finals. That's, if you don't watch basketball, that's one bracket away from being in the finals. The finals is what you want. You want to win, okay? And this is what Minnesota, I'm going to get there, but we don't want to actually win more than we want to be cute and keep it PG and keep the fans pleased, right? We'd never make the move that is the right move because we're afraid of upsetting people, right? So this is a fear, and many of us have this fear in our lives individually. But I'm about to tell you. So what do? We make it to the Western Conference Finals with Karl-Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards, and a great team of young players. We have a fantastic team. We have probably Rudy Gobert, Naz Reid, Jaden Daniels. We have one of the best rosters you could ever assemble. What do? We get rid of Karl-Anthony Towns, our second best player. We get rid of him. We trade him to New York, who ends up winning the finals now, for Julius Randle, who's a C+, B- player, and he was at the time too. It's not like, he was amazing back then. No, he was always a C+, B- player, erring on the side of C+. And then Dante DiVincenzo, who again is another cute player. He's a cute guy, but he's not going to move the needle. He's fun to play with in NBA 2K24 or whatever you guys are playing on Xbox these days. He's a cool guy. He's a unique looking Irish guy. I don't even know what he is, but he's not going to move the needle like the second best player on our team was. And then people will say, David, we needed to trade Karl-Anthony Towns because of money reasons. See, this is where Minnesota sports fans get in their own way. They defend their own just poor decision making and this sense of like, these are the moves we had to make. It's kind of like the box that we have to stay in. Bro, we didn't have to make that move. We could have traded Nas Reed. We could have just kept our team and offloaded some assets that needed to get offloaded to afford Karl Anthony Towns. People are saying we couldn't afford Karl Anthony Towns. What do you mean we can't afford our second best player? Of course we can afford our second best player, bro. It's a choice to not afford our second best player. It's a choice. And we all do this in our lives. We make, oh, well, it'll cost too much money to be healthy. I don't need to eat organic. That is a choice. If you wanted to eat organic, you could figure out a way to eat organic. You know, if you wanted to spend money on organic foods for your kids to make them healthy, you could figure out a way to do that. Of course, our governments and our systems could do a better job of making that organic food more widely available, of course, and cheaper, of course. That's also a main problem. Back to the Timberwolves. So what do? We trade away Karl Anthony Towns. When we got to the Western Conference, we didn't need to make any moves. We had the team. We lost to Luka Doncic and the Mavs. Who cares? It's one series. We'll be back next year. What do? We blow up the team that we just made it to the top second best spot you can get to. We blow up the team for 2 cute little picks, okay? Let's just be cute with it, okay? Now the Timberwolves, wow, that was crazy. I just saw a branch of a tree fall down way across the lake there. That was a huge branch. Now the Timberwolves, their branch probably heard me yelling from here. Timberwolves just made a move for LaMelo Ball. What do I think about that move? I actually think this is the first good move we've ever made. This is the first, besides drafting Anthony Edwards and drafting Karl Anthony Towns and drafting, but I think, all of our good players. But in hindsight, this might be the best move we have ever made that I can think of for a player, because LaMelo Ball is just what we need. We need a point guard. And LaMelo Ball is a great player. And he may not be, the best image, so to speak, but we stopped caring about image and how it looked. And we started to just think with some common sense. So I really like this move. And I actually think if we can add maybe a fourth piece to this puzzle, like a larger power forward type, Karl Anthony Towns would be great, but we can't obviously do that. Maybe like a Sabonis, like a little bit less good than Sabonis. Then I think that this team has a chance to win a championship. But we can't make any other crazy moves. Now we've got 3 really good players. Rudy, Ant, LaMelo. We just got to keep Jaden Daniels. We just got to add one other piece. So, how does this relate to the Vikings? The Vikings, similarly, tried to get cute. When did they try to get cute? Let's think about it. Isn't it funny, too, how the 2 examples that I'm giving you, New York Knicks and the Seattle Seahawks, who I'm about to give you, with Sam Darnold, they both won championships. So what did they do? What did we do wrong? What we did wrong was we were presented with information right in front of our eyes. And we said, nope, I need to look at the analytics. I need to look at the numbers and figure out, I need to be smarter than my own eyes. I'm not smart enough. My own eyes, what they're telling me, are not intelligent enough. I need to outsmart myself. And in order to outsmart myself, I'm going to completely overthink things. I'm going to botch it. And I'm going to try to be cute to please the fans. I'm going to people please by this cute little deal I'm doing, this cute little thing. So what did the Vikings do? They won 14 games in whatever that season was, 2 seasons ago, whatever year that was, 2024, with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold looked like freaking John Elway out there in that year when he was on the Vikings. We won 14 games. What did we do? We lost 1 game, 2 games at the end of that run. Did Sam Darnold look good in those games? No. But what was it? It was Sam Darnold's first ever extremely important game in his NFL career. It was his first ever playoff game. And yes, he didn't look good. It was his first ever playoff game. What did the fans do? This is where I can come back and blame the fans. Oh, we need to get rid of Darnold. He's a choker. Bro, the first time that you tied your shoes, how did that go? You needed a few reps, right? You needed a few. Let him get a few, right? So now what did Sam Darnold do? We let him walk after winning 14. By the way, they only play 17 games. So when we won 14 games out of 17 in the National Football League, you win 14 games out of 17 of those games, that's pretty good. It's honestly even close to being unheard of. Of course, it's not unheard of, but it's in the threshold of an A. That's an A season. What happens? We take the final exam and we get a C+ on the final exam. Okay. But all of our tests result in our grade being an A- overall. Okay, we get an A- on the year in the Minnesota Vikings. What do? We get cute with it. Oh, well, we got J.J. McCarthy. We can this cute next Tom Brady. He's cute. He's got a good face. He'll be the face of the franchise. Sure, maybe he will be, but we should at least run it back with Darnold. Oh, again, well, we couldn't figure out how to pay him. We don't know how much we should. Bro, figure it out. Figure out how to pay him. He's the franchise quarterback of your team, potentially. Figure out how to pay him. 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is. Worst comes to worst, we let him walk, and then we let McCarthy come back in. So what do? We let Sam Darnold walk without figuring out how to pay him. He goes on to Seattle. He wins a Super Bowl the next year. The Super Bowl. Guys, I don't think you realize winning the Super Bowl is the goal. The goal is not to, let's make the cute move and get the cute quarterback and do the cute thing and crunch our numbers and, sit on our calculators all day and just try to appease everyone. Guys, you either want to win or you don't. Most people don't understand this. In order to win, you need to, what's a lack of a better word of saying, man up, maybe upset a few people, and set your sights and sail forward. So, what do? Sam Darnold walks, he goes to Seattle, they win a Super Bowl, we put in J.J. McCarthy, and here's where we mess up again. We have J.J. McCarthy. Okay, that's where we set our sail. We set our sail on J.J. McCarthy, so at that point, we got to stick to him. We got to stick to J.J. McCarthy, and this is before the 2026 season, before Kyler Murray has played, so I'm going to give my prediction on that in a moment. And then I'm going to end this video because it's getting long. J.J. McCarthy, what do we do with him? We let him play one season. What does he do? He shows some signs of promise, but he mainly shows injury prone and, health issues, health concerns. Okay. But guys, we just let the Super Bowl winning quarterback walk. We should at least, if we're going to give up a Super Bowl, that's bro, I can't think of a good analogy right off the top of my head, but that's like letting your girlfriend walk out and at least if she's going to walk out on you, you're going to at least, try to find a better girl or whatever. You're going to give your all into the next thing, right? So what do? We half go in, oh, J.J. McCarthy, oh, he's injured. He's injury prone. So what do? We yank the chain on McCarthy, the guy we thought was the next Tom Brady in our investment, which we shouldn't have done. We should have gone all in, again, set our sail, all in on McCarthy. All in. We should have gone all in. That means 2 years. If he's hurt, if he's injury prone, all right, figure out if he's actually injury prone, guys. Have a little bit of a time horizon here. Tom Brady wasn't Tom Brady on game one. He wasn't Tom Brady on season one. All these guys, they took multiple seasons to really, oh, wow, this is what we've got. You don't know what you got until you give it a chance. The NFL, especially Minnesota fans, are so short-sighted. We need to extend the time horizon. 2 years, all in on McCarthy. But what do? We go half in, half out. We immediately adjust our sail. Ooh, new shiny object, Kyler Murray. Okay, Kyler Murray. Okay, that's not a terrible idea. Now we're not talking, this isn't an awful idea, but But what does it go back to? It goes back to the point of that we're not thinking about how to win. We're not thinking about the Super Bowl. We're thinking instead about getting bounced in the first or second round. Kyler Murray's a great quarterback. We'll probably win 11 games, 10 games. You know, he's got potential that I'm sure he'll try to his best to fulfill, which will result in a B to B plus season for us. But are we going to win the Super Bowl with Kyler Murray? No. Could we have won the Super Bowl with J.J. McCarthy? We won't ever know because we are too cowardly to find out, because we care too much about what the general population will think and what the general consensus will be in our short attention span of a mass of people, our TikTok mass of people. You cannot in your life be afraid once you set your attention, your North Star, your Super Bowl, whatever it is in your life, and you know it's worth fighting for. You cannot let the waves and the crowd and the masses and their short attention span and their hysteria. There's a reason they're called fans. Fanatic. That literally means crazy. I don't think fans are crazy. My personal only definition of crazy is evil, but that's another topic. You cannot let the masses sway you from your North Star, because you'll never end up where you want to be. You'll always end up living an average life and having average results for your business, for the world around you. So that's how you have a winner's mindset. Minnesota sports, like A-Rod and Mark Lore, I applaud you. I think this is the best chance the Timberwolves have gotten, but we wouldn't have had to make this swing. This is a good trade. LaMelo's a good trade. I like that. Getting rid of Naz Reid, I like that. Naz Reid is a good player, but LaMelo's way better, and he fills a need for us. But we wouldn't have had to do that if we just figured out a way to pay Karl Anthony Towns and stopped trying to people please. Again, well, how did we people please with Karl Anthony Towns, David? How did we people please there? That's not a people please. Yes, it is. I'll explain how it's a people please. Karl Anthony Towns was actually, if you rewind back to that time he was playing on the Timberwolves 2 years ago, was actually not well liked by the fans. He was like, I remember I would go to a few games, he'd actually be booed when he was complaining, because he is known by our fans, especially our hardcore fans, as a complainer, always complaining. And he did complain a lot about fouls and not getting fouls and this and that with the refs. He was a big complainer. But guys, he's our second best player. Let him complain. If we want to go for it, we have to swing for the fences. He was our second best player. And so we were allowing the noise around the fans of this guy is always complaining, he's negative. We were allowing that noise to fester into an irrational decision of the fact that this guy is a really good basketball player. And we were allowing that to build up to the point, and if you're honest with yourself as a Timberwolves fan, you will agree with what I'm saying. We're allowing that to build up to a point where we no longer valued Towns. I'm even guilty of this. At certain points, I was like, we need to get rid of Towns. We need to get rid of Towns. But would I have done it after we had made it to the Western Conference Finals? No, of course not. When we traded Towns, I threw my phone in the air. Why are we trading our second best? We just made it to the Western Conference Finals. So, yeah. If you think I'm getting hysterical, this isn't hysteria. I'm just passionate about this. This is fun. So, but you can think whatever you want. Yeah, this is fun. So I hope that the lesson here is, kids, is that when you're thinking about your life, your intentions, you have to block out the noise. When you've got that Super Bowl, block out the noise. And the other lesson is expand your time horizon. And when you expand your time horizon and when you zoom out, you'll realize the noise doesn't matter. What matters is yourself in terms of your connection to the greater good. And what I mean by that is if you know that whatever you're trying to do is good for you and good for others, You don't need the outside noise. The outside noise is exactly that. It is noise. So let this be a lesson to you, your family, your loved ones, and especially those Minnesota Timberwolves fans and those Minnesota Vikings fans who need to hear this. I'm calling it right now. 11 wins for the Vikings this year. 10 wins for the Vikings this year. Somewhere around there. Bounced in the first round. Kyler Murray is a good quarterback. He's a B quarterback. But when you win 14 games, you don't get rid of the guy who got you 14 wins. That's hard to do. You use your own eyes. You use your own judgment. You block out the noise, and you go for gold. I love you. Have an amazing day. Have an amazing week. Stay positive. You got this. Focus on your goals and your dreams. I love you.